Hello everyone and welcome to another Lanzarote news for you. The weather is absolutely beautiful at the moment. I'll just spin the camera around for you. That's the sky, but it is quite chilly early mornings. During the day it's getting to sort of 24 degrees, but first thing in the morning it's maybe 14 or 15, which is why I'm wearing a jumper, and I thought I'd talk about it in case 100 people decided to email me and ask me why I'm wearing a jumper in Lanzarote. Forgive the noise of the birds. There are a load of birds in the palm to my left that are chattering away, but I think it's quite a pleasant sound, so I won't shoo them away. Loads to talk about this week. Tom Cruise has been on the island. Yes, the Tom Cruise. There's also, while we're talking about Hollywood, a massive Netflix show being filmed here next week. I will tell you all about that. There's a story about solar panels. There's also one about a British tourist who was assaulted, punched, and is in hospital. I'll tell you the background to that. We've also got another one, a very odd one, about a man who ended up in a garbage truck, and we will also be discussing the economy here. Those and a lot more to come, and stay tuned until the end because I will be giving you 3 things that you could be doing in the next 7 days if you're in Lanzarote. But let's start off with some great news. Monumento Campesino is coming back, and this is the monument to the peasant farmer to fertility, created by Cesar Manrique many years ago. And as you may know if you watch these news bulletins regularly, the monument was blown down in some very strong winds in the middle of last year. It's been completely refurbished, and the good news is they already have the base layer in, building it back up. So that should be back where it should be, right in the centre of the island in the next few weeks. Next up, and this is about time, the Avenida de las Playas, which is the commonly known as the Strip in Puerto del Carmen, is being resurfaced at the moment. I say it's great news because not only is it really bumpy, but the drain covers are in many places loose, and they're in such a position that you almost can't avoid them when you're driving down the strip. So there's a constant thump in the car and a clang outside, which is probably disturbing for the people sitting in the pavement cafes and bars along the strip. So that's being resurfaced at the moment. The first section they're doing is from Avenida Italia down, it looks like from the map, about 1 kilometre down the strip. So obviously there are going to be diversions in place, but I think it's a job well worth doing, and I hope they do it properly, and we've got a lovely smooth surface to cruise down in the future. Now, I said at the top we'd talk about Tom Cruise being on the island, and he was here for, we're not sure exactly how many days, but a short period of time leading up to January the 2nd. We only know that because he departed on the 2nd of January on his private jet, flying to Farnborough Airport, and apparently he has a house in that part of the UK. But he was here staying on a yacht in Puerto Calero, and he obviously did a very good job of keeping his location quiet because none of us knew anything about it, so he was probably left in peace while he was in Puerto Calero. But there are various pictures on the web of him sort of grinning, saying hello to a chef and things like that. Very good for the profile of Lanzarote in America, of course. And while we're talking about Hollywood and movies and things like that, a Netflix show is filming, a huge Netflix show is filming in Playa del Reducto next Monday afternoon in Arrecife. And the show is called La Reina del Flow, so the Queen of Flow. And it is the biggest Spanish language TV show that Netflix makes. So it's massively popular. It's kind of a soap opera, and this is part of series 3, which is being filmed here. People are invited to go along and be extras in it and just sort of be in the background of the movie. From what I can understand, they're filming some kind of concert on the beach, so there's a stage that's been set up, and I guess they want people to be the concert audience. Now, you may know that Open Mall, which is the biggest shopping centre on the island, is already building an extension into an area where there used to be a Hypertino supermarket. And they've just applied for planning permission for yet another extension, which will see them taking over the old cannery factory at the back side of Open Mall at the moment and converting that into another 16,000 square metres of shopping space. And that will kind of, for those of you who know the area, will front on to the health centre at Valterra. So Open Mall has been a really big success, and there was some pushback from people about opening a really big shopping centre in Arrecife, but the place is always busy and we shop in there quite often because there are some excellent shops in there. So I'm hoping these new extensions will just see that continue, and Open Mall will continue to go from strength to strength. Now, the Canary Islands have an objective, as you can imagine, to reduce our use of fossil fuels, and they've set some, I don't think they're very ambitious targets, but they've set some targets for percentages of renewable energy across the islands, and that's all controlled by the Canary Islands government centrally for us. And the Canary Islands government have put forward a proposal to install solar panels on a plot of about 100,000 square metres in Macha, and it's right next to an electricity substation there. And the idea is to put 7,000 panels on there, and they give the power output in megawatt hours, which, you know, it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sure it doesn't mean anything to you. So I can't. What I'd like to see is this will give us 10% or whatever the answer is of the electricity needed by the island, but they don't do that. They tell you how many megawatt hours they will produce. As you can imagine, there's already been pushback from both the Cabildo of this island, so our island government, and the Ayuntamiento of Tias, which is the local town hall for that area. And they're saying, well, you know, we need to be consulted, we need to look at this and we need to decide, which is quite right, of course. These things are always really difficult, aren't they? Because we all want renewable energy and effectively free energy, but we don't want it to blight the landscape of the island. So I'm just sharing the story with you, and I'll keep you posted as to what happens about these various disagreements and whether it goes ahead or not in the longer term. You might remember we ran a story a few months ago about a disruptive passenger on a Ryanair flight who the flight was from Dublin to Lanzarote. He was drunk and behaving very badly towards everybody on the aircraft, and in the end the captain took the decision to divert to Porto rather than fly on from Portugal the rest of the way to Lanzarote. They landed the aircraft. Unfortunately, the crew then didn't have enough hours to get the passengers back to Lanzarote, so everyone had to be put up in hotels, and they continued their journey the following morning. Ryanair are actually suing that man for 15,000 euros, which is the cost of putting everyone up in accommodation overnight. So it'll be interesting to see how that court case goes. And you know, I just can't get my head around these things, how people can get so drunk and misbehave on a flight. But it seems to be happening increasingly. It'll come as no surprise to you that in the period from January to November, Lanzarote hit an all-time tourist record. And for the first time ever in that 11-month period, we exceeded 3 million tourists. We haven't had the numbers for December yet, but it's almost certain with the feeling on the ground here as to how many people there were here over the Christmas period, that the year will be an all-time tourism record for the island. Now, it's interesting, when I started looking at the numbers in a bit more detail in that period from January to November, that the 4 busiest months of the year were March, which was the highest, February, October and November. And for sure you'll be able to add December to that. Well, so what does that mean? Well, it means that there are now significantly more people coming to the island in the winter months than there are in the summer months. Now, we've always been an all year round destination, and there isn't much fluctuation from month to month. But in previous years, the summer months have been slightly higher than the winter months, and that's sort of turned on its head now. So we are very much a winter sun destination now. And also talking about tourism, the the sector of biggest growth is French tourists in the last 10 years. And the number of French tourists coming to the island over the last 10 years has increased by 155% to around 216,000 a year. So, as I say, we haven't got the final figures for December and therefore for the whole of 2024. And we'll certainly run the full story in the news as soon as we've got all of the detail on it. Key things to pick out, I think we will see that there will be a record number of tourists overall. French and Italian tourism seems to be growing. British tourism remains the highest at around half of the overall number of tourists coming here. The Germans are growing slightly, but nowhere near the numbers we had in the early 2000s from Germany, for example. What do you think? I'd be really interested to hear what your views are. Do we have too many tourists? Have we got about the right number? How does the island feel to you compared to previous years based on your visits in 2024? Leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. I'm always interested to read comments and I read every single one of them. I mentioned this at the top, but this is the most bizarre story. Some rubbish truck drivers were emptying the bins here. And I don't know if you can picture the bins, but we have those really large rubbish bins. They're the size of a car. They sit on the ends of streets. And the trucks come along and they have a mechanism that lifts them up and tips them into the back, and then the crusher comes down and crushes the rubbish in there. Well, some guys, some rubbish, I can't think of the right word for them, dustmen, I guess, or dust people, I don't know what the right word is. Garbage technicians probably were driving their truck and they emptied a bin in Puerto del Carmen, and fortunately two of the guys were standing at the back and they saw that a man was tipped in from one of the bins. So they shouted to stop the crushing mechanism and he wasn't crushed, and they pulled him out, and it turns out that he was a bit inebriated and decided to go to sleep in the rubbish bin. So he had a really, really lucky escape. And another slightly weird story, but one that happens surprisingly often here. A dead cow was washed ashore at Arrecife beach earlier this week, and firefighters had to come down and remove the body. I don't think that's a very good job for anyone to have to do, because it was in quite a bad state of decay. And this happens when cows die basically en route on ships, and they tend to chuck them overboard. And occasionally they reach us and they get washed up on the beach. And we already talked about tourism records. December was also an extremely warm month here. One of the warmest since records began on the island. The average temperature was almost 1 degree higher than normal for a December, and we actually had a high of over 30 degrees during the month. And we had one night where the temperature didn't drop below 22 degrees. So when you compare it to the storms and the snow and everything going on in Northern Europe, we had a really good time of it in December weather-wise. And the economy is doing well too. Property prices rose by 6.6% here in the Canaries over the last 12 months. But we also had a drop in interest rates across Spain, which meant that people with a typical mortgage of 150,000 over 25 years will see savings of around €100 a month from this month onwards. So prices up and mortgage rates down is always good news for an economy. And unemployment is also down across the Canaries as well, and particularly here in Lanzarote. We have 8.3% fewer unemployed in December versus December 2023. So the economy is doing extremely well here, and long may that continue. And the last story is an uncomfortable one to talk about. A British tourist was assaulted in Puerto del Carmen. This was last weekend, actually. And from what I can gather, the story is that a Portuguese man was riding an e-scooter. That's been wrongly translated by a lot of the British press as a skateboard. It wasn't. It was an e-scooter along the cycleway on the strip in Puerto del Carmen, and two British people, I'm assuming they're a couple, but they haven't specifically said that, were walking in the cycleway, as so often happens here. It seems that an altercation took place, and I'm guessing that the scooter rider perhaps shouted at them, and the British tourist maybe argued back or shouted back. But the short story is that the Portuguese man then punched the British guy in the face, broke his jaw and eye socket, and he went back quite hard onto the pavement, so he's got some injuries to the back of his head as well, and he ended up in hospital quite seriously hurt. The Portuguese man was arrested, and he is waiting his day in court. So we'll let you know what happens as a result of all of that. And it is a problem. I mean, this is going to keep happening. I mean, obviously, road rage, or scooter rage in this case, is the most ridiculous thing. But the issue is the cycleway. The only differentiation between the cycle path on the pavement, on the strip, is the colour of the tarmac and the fact that there's a white line painted down the middle of it. And it's just so easy, particularly when you're kind of in holiday mode and looking around you and enjoying the beach and, you know, looking at the shops and bars and restaurants. It's so easy to wander into that lane inadvertently as a pedestrian. I ride my bike on it quite often, and, you know, I just take it super, super slow, staying below 10 kilometers an hour. And I use my voice as well if I see people are straying. You know, I might even just cough just so that they're aware that somebody's behind them and coming up behind them relatively slowly. But I think the answer is to create a real definition in the way that there is, for example, on the section of the strip along Los Posios Beach. The cycle path is actually in the road and is coned off to one side to separate the cycle path from the cars, but you don't have these issues in that section. Well, that's it from the news aspect this week, so I hope you enjoyed that. And as I promised, I'm going to talk about 3 things you could be doing if you're on the island next week. And the first of those is to go along and be an extra and enjoy watching the filming of the hugely popular Netflix series La Reina del Flow, the Queen of Flow, and that takes place in Arrecife on Playa del Reducto, the main beach there, at 2 p.m. on Monday. I'll tell you a little bit about La Reina del Flow. Now, I've never seen it, but I am going to watch it now that I've heard about it. I'll read what it says here. It's the story of Yaimi Montoya and her path to success in the world of reggaeton, accompanied by iconic characters such as Charlie Flow, played by Carlos Torres. And this is the 3rd season, and the emotions, music and surprising twists will continue apparently to captivate fans. If you want to be involved, bear in mind that you shouldn't wear visible logos on your clothing, and the mere fact of your attendance implies consent for your image to be used in the concert. So it is, as I suspected and mentioned during the news section, a concert presumably she's going to be singing at, and if you go down there, you're going to be part of the crowd. So that's Monday the 13th, 2 o'clock in Arrecife on Playa del Reducto. And next up, how about a free classical music concert in Puerto del Carmen? It's the Festival de Música Clásica Primavera 2025, so it's the spring classic music festival of 2025, and it takes place on Friday the 17th at 8 o'clock. And it's at El Fondeadero in Puerto del Carmen, and that's the kind of meeting place owned by the Ayuntamiento. It's got the Ayuntamiento crest on it. As you turn into the parking area in the Old Town Harbour in Puerto del Carmen. So it's the Fondeadero, and if you're looking for it, ask anyone and they'll point you in the direction of it, but it's just round the corner from the Red House. And the concert is emceed by Concepcion Lopez, and we've got 2 violinists, a trumpet player, a clarinet and a pianist. So it's quite an interesting sounding combo. So that's free classical music in Puerto del Carmen next Friday. And finally, I'm going to recommend you go along to Uga Market on Saturday the 18th, and the market's on from 9 until 2. Now, Uga is the beautiful little town at the kind of entrance to the La Heria wine region near Yaiza. But the market there is really nice for two reasons. I mean, one, they have a lot of interesting artisan products which are made locally on the island. But two, a lot of the farmers bring their produce to it, and it's a cracking little produce market. You can stock up on your fruit and veg, and you'll find locally made jams and wines and all kinds of interesting stuff. So it's just a really nice day out in Uga, and what I would do is go along and enjoy the market late morning for an hour or two, and then wander to one of the excellent small restaurants in Uga, or go on to Yaitsa and do the same there and have lunch. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching these videos. We really do appreciate every view. If you've liked this one, please give us a like. If you've got any comments, leave them below. As I said before, I read every single one of them, and I always respond if you have a question. We'll be back the same time next week, Saturday morning, but bear in mind we also release a video on a Tuesday or a Thursday. So do subscribe, and a Thursday I should say. So do subscribe to our channel if you want to see all of those, and also click the notification bell if you want to be notified when this video and the others go live. Thanks again, and take care. Bye for now.